something that is on all of our minds. It's a growing demographic within jiu-jitsu, and especially with the pandemic. I've had a lot of master women kind of reaching out with specific issues that impact women in jiu-jitsu with what's going on. These are some really hard times for jiu-jitsu as a whole, and one of the things that I wanted to open with and talk about is, women tend to wear a lot more hats as far as being caregivers for family, for children. They don't tend to, prioritize time for themselves. Before the pandemic, the growing number of women in jiu-jitsu that were in the masters category, has just been rapidly growing over the years. Do you guys think that this pandemic is going to impact that growth in the long run?
So
go ahead and answer, whoever wants to take it.
It's Bernadette, and I've been questioning that myself. I think that there possibly will be a fear of getting on the mat in that contact, because I happen to be at 58, very close to that demographic of people who are passing away. And our sport is in your face. There is no way you are avoiding droplets of anything. So I have been concerned, and especially I was thinking about for newer people to the sport and hoping that it didn't turn them away, because they're so new, they're not rooted in it yet. And it's almost too early for me to decide one way or another, but it's something I'm pondering, like, okay, what is this going to look like when we're a little further down the line? And that still is just a big question mark for me right now, even with myself.
I agree. I think there often the way I describe it is that we're sort of trading, we're trading mysteries, almost like, well, I heard this and I heard this. And so we, in the absence of a real kind of general sense of what we need to do going forward to keep ourselves safe as people, it's going to be difficult for us to drill down and think about this very close contact sport as Bernadette described it. And so I agree. I'm having difficulty imagining what it would look like in a quote unquote new normal. I know some people hate that phrase, but I think that's what we need to be thinking about, is what jiu-jitsu can look like in the future, so that we can all keep ourselves and each other safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've watched myself go through different feelings about it as this time keeps changing, as the time gets longer and longer. So at first it was like, okay, I'm fine staying away. I've been away for other reasons, health reasons, other issues in the past, or injuries even. I've been out 6 months. We've all been out with injuries, especially, I kind of joke, as a black belt, that just means you've had a lot more injuries, right? So we've all been away from the sport. So it was kind of easy for me to just shut it off. And as you were saying with the other hats, I don't have a family and kids, but it gave me time to do a lot of other things in a slower pace, and to slow down and just kind of deal with things in my life, those things that, I don't have time to do. I don't have the time to do. I need to take care. I know, we all know, like, people's houses are getting nicer. People are going through a lot of old photos and a lot, trying to purge old things out, because you're stuck at home. But as the time goes on, it starts playing with your head, because all of a sudden we're like, wait, it's been like 2 months now. It's not 2 weeks, and as we all know, like, the days start mushing together. We're not sure what day it is. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, it's like May, like we missed March and April, right? So I don't know. And the other thing, and maybe, something we were kind of talking about, like, as an older woman, you have more wear and tear. So I have some lung issues that really scare the crap out of me, that I don't want to take that chance as much as I want to roll. So I don't know, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next month or two with vaccines, immunology, all these other things. I mean, no one knows, right? So we just have to wait and see. and I get so conflicted with some of the younger people, and I think, if they want to go roll, I go for it, but they also have to know that they have to take the responsibility of what they're doing. But I'm also lucky. I don't have a family. I don't have to be in contact with people or take that risk to be around older people or people I care about.
Yeah. What about, so I had a woman who was about 65 years old, and she's thinking, I always thought, it would be an injury that would kind of end my jiu-jitsu journey. But here I am looking at the pandemic, by the time it comes back around, say it's another year or so, I'm going to be 66. I mean, do you have any kind of advice? I know that, you talked about, you have had breaks, you guys have been training for a long time. So you've adjusted to the, okay, well, I got to take some time off. Do you have any advice for somebody who's maybe newer, who has not had anything that's taken them out previously and getting through it?
My big thing is always, and it makes me sound much more zen and much more centered than I am, but my big thing is to try to be present where I am. And so you can spin your wheels until kingdom come, trying to figure out what you're going to do when you have the opportunity. But we don't know what those opportunities are going to look like. We don't know where we're going to be. I'm among those people who has been in jiu-jitsu long enough so that I have taken significant time off. And one of the times that I took off was not for injury, it was because I was burned out and I didn't feel like training. And so what I did was every day, it's interesting because even when I wasn't training, I still lived my life according to, like, it was still in terms of training, because every day I'd wake up and go, do I feel like training? And if the answer was no, then I wouldn't train. And eventually the answer became maybe. So I sort of started to pay attention to that. And then eventually the answer became yes. My point is not that, I'm not trying to discount the frustration and challenges that people are feeling because they can't train. But that being said, we're in a situation where we can't train. So what can we do in the meantime to keep ourselves sane in the now, to keep ourselves centered and grounded and happy and focused on what's right in front of us? And that, for me, is the best thing that I can do to prepare me to make that kind of decision in the future when that decision point comes.
Absolutely. Bernadette or Felicia, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I think I'm the same way. I think if I were younger and had that same question, or further back in my journey, probably 15, 16, 17, 18 years back, I would answer different. But I think my life has a lot of things that are rich and beautiful, and that I don't know yet that I might want to explore. So for me, sometimes they use that term, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. And I hear people, but my lifestyle is my lifestyle. So I make the choices for myself every step of the way. Jiu-jitsu is a wonderful addition to my life, but it doesn't own me. So therefore I just keep going. And kind of like Val said, sometimes it's just one day at a time. And, and there are things, if the answer is yes, and we can't get out there because of COVID-19, I do think there are other things I happen to have a small team, actually 3 of them that I train. And one of the teams that are in town with me, I take them into the woods. I do, and we still train, and I say 12 feet apart, whether they say 6 or not, stay 12 feet apart from me. We tie our gis to the tree, and we do fit-ins, and we do other things. And we're able to also have some good conversations about why and what is it about jiu-jitsu or the grappling sports that attracts you to it, and what does that mean for the overall development of you as a person. So I've been able to have more interesting conversations with people where at other times I might be rushed.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think as all masters women in this group, that we've all been in it for such a long time, and that we have had to deal with different adversities and times away from the sport, that it gives us a little edge on that. I think when you're younger in age and younger in jiu-jitsu age, there's this sense of urgency, and definitely the FOMO, like everyone else is getting better and I can't be off the mat because I need to, they're going to get ahead of me. I know we all had that at a previous time. I think our experience and time give us an edge on being okay. And I think, even like I was thinking about this earlier, like, jiu-jitsu used to be like a kind of a microcosm of life, but I think it is life. It's like, there's so many things in life that I've wanted that I never got. It's like, I wish I was in this relationship. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And no matter what you wish, it doesn't matter. And it goes back to what Val was saying. It's like, you deal with what you have right now and what's present, and you're grateful for what you have. And I've just kind of put the blinders on, and every time I see someone posting, I miss jiu-jitsu, and I'll kind of go, oh yeah, I miss you guys too. But I mean, I do and I don't, because it's like, it's only going to put stress on myself to be wanting something that's not possible, whether it's seeing those people, so then I might call them or text them. But if I can't train jiu-jitsu now, and I know people are secretly training, but I know that's not the choice for me because of my health, and I'm fine with that, they can do that. But I can't keep hoping, I wish this was different. It's like, we have to wait and see and deal with what's right now.
Yeah,
well, this is another thing that just in listening to both of you, what it's made me realize is how over time it sounds like our relationships to jiu-jitsu have changed. So if you use the analogy of a relationship, when you first start training, it's, oh my God, I am in love with jiu-jitsu. Is jiu-jitsu thinking about me as much as I'm thinking about jiu-jitsu? If you want to establish a healthy and lasting relationship with anything, particularly with jiu-jitsu, you get to the point where you're like, all right, now I'm in my stage of jiu-jitsu where like I fart in front of jiu-jitsu, like the relationship has deepened and strengthened, and it's become something that that I don't need to think about as much, because I know that I'm in it for the long haul. And those are decisions that each of us had to make during those times when we were away. And so getting back to your original question, Shama, about advice that you might give to people who are new, they may be bumping up against this sort of, the honeymoon phase is over earlier than they wanted to, but it was inevitable. So this is how your relationship with anybody works, with anything works that you spend a lot of time with. So their relationship with jiu-jitsu was going to change. It's just that this external force changed it in ways and at a time when maybe they weren't ready for it. But it's something that they would have had to contend with at one time or another.
Yeah. And along that lines, I think, I was separated from jiu-jitsu for like 5 years. My pen was on the divorce paper and I was about to sign it. And then, I got sucked back in. And the other thing I try to remind people is, whether it's an injury or the situation we're in now, jiu-jitsu is not going anywhere. It'll be there when we get back, so.
yeah.
Unlike some relationships.
True. Very true.
Then you sign.
Do you think that jiu-jitsu is one of those things that we do eventually age out of? I know you say it's there forever, but do you think there's a point, roll forever? Yep.
I think given the right circumstances, I think when I hear stories from my teacher and from the old days, and people would get their knee messed up and then they'd have one surgery and they were done for their career. I think, I've had 2 knee surgeries, and, you can come back from all these things. We'll see what happens right now, but I think physically, aside from the whole pandemic thing going on right now, I think that the sport has grown so much that there are enough people and enough different academies and styles. Like, I'm not going to go to the hardcore 20-year-old professional training jiu-jitsu competitor school anymore. You find the right training partners that you're not going to get hurt, and that you both are there for the same reasons, that you can continue to roll, I think.
And I think that age out, I don't think it's necessary. I think some people will age out, and I think that becomes their choice. For myself, I don't see aging out of jiu-jitsu. It's just a change in the relationship with it. I started judo way before this. I started judo in 1979-ish. First time was probably in 1960 something, but 79-ish when I formally got into it. And I still have a relationship with judo. My foundation doesn't change even in my jiu-jitsu. So there's something that is in me from everything in my life. We're talking about the arts right now, but from every part of my life that continues with me. And so I think that I think of a woman, Fukuda Sensei, and I think she was 98 when she passed away, and she was in her wheelchair and she was still teaching. I believe that she was in San Francisco, still teaching judo till the very end. And that was her relationship with it. And I love that, because for me, I can see myself still being around. It may not be every day, I may not be rolling, but I still have something that I can pass on, that at least for me and the person that wants to learn from me may think that that's important or precious, or the way that they're going to get through their life. Because I do believe it's a vehicle. There are many vehicles. My sons are actors. Theirs is through the arts. I have a musician. His is through the, through that art. Mine just happens to be through this type of, and I consider it an art, this art.
I agree 100% with what both Felicia and Bernadette said, but Bernadette, something you said really struck me, this idea that your relationship to jiu-jitsu changes. And we mentioned that earlier. And I think that one of the other things that needs to happen is that your identity relative to jiu-jitsu changes. So it isn't just about your relationship to jiu-jitsu, it's about who you are. So we're so used to hearing about the warrior archetype, I'm going to kick this person's ass and jiu-jitsu enables me to protect myself, et cetera, et cetera. But what I find happening with me now is that I still love to train. I love to roll with people, and people are coming to me more for sort of wisdom, which, of course, behind closed doors, I laugh because I'm not wise about anything, but the experiences that I've had and the time that I've put into jiu-jitsu, that enables me, first of all, to share a different resource with people who are newer. And second of all, it enables me to gracefully and graciously move into a different identity when it comes to jiu-jitsu. One of the things I'm really fortunate to have had the opportunity to do early in my jiu-jitsu career was train under Carlson Gracie Sr. and Carlson Gracie Jr. So Carlson Gracie Sr. came to the school I was training at, where Jr. was the main instructor. He was in his 70s at the time. I never saw him train once. I saw him teach all the time. I saw him correct people all the time. I saw him engage all the time. He was as engaged as I think anybody at that gym, despite the fact that he never rolled with anybody. But it didn't matter, because he was there participating in the capacity that it made sense for him to participate in. And the thing that, and I can't speak for him, but one of the things that I'm learning about myself is that I have to get out of my own way. I have to be okay with changing my identity relative to jiu-jitsu, not being the, I don't know, was I ever an enforcer? I doubt it. But, the person who was like super tough and could be, could kick everybody's ass. That's not me anymore, if it ever was. And so I'm the person who has to come to terms with that fact and take on this new identity and assume that everybody else will respect it. And once I do that, everybody else kind of falls into line.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of touched on it there, but how, we talked about it a little bit, but how has your relationship, as you've progressed in this, how has it changed for you guys, like in that evolution?
Well, I started out competing from like the first 6 months. And, I'm kind of a competitive person. But as you get older, your body changes and your abilities change. And I think in many ways, I'm better at jiu-jitsu. But my approach now, like I've gone back to competing in masters, which is no longer the shameful, horrible thing that it was when we first started, where it was like, that's embarrassing, old man worlds. But now it's pretty much the most fun tournament ever. Yes. Because of the venue and all the people there, and it gives everyone, a chance to get back out there. But when I'm training now, aside from getting ready for something like that, it's playful. And, part of that is our age in jiu-jitsu as a black belt and being in it for a while, that it's not the threat and the grind. Oh, I'm gonna get tapped and I need to fight, and now it's just like I'm laughing and playing, and I'm like hitting techniques and stuff. It's not like I'm not doing anything, but my attitude and approach, like I'll be laughing while I'm rolling, and but it's like fun. There's like a different sense of competitive funness about it than there used to be. Like it wasn't like I didn't have fun before, but I'm like just literally playing.
What about you, Bernadette?
I think that that my journey has been sorted. I came to jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, from judo, and I think there were many things, and we'll probably touch on some of them at different points in this this session that we're having. But it's very hard because I think it became a vehicle that helped me to get through some anxiety. When I first started out, I would go in and, I competed fairly early, within a year and a half, 2 years, and I did very well. We didn't have all the tournaments that we had now. We had just a couple, and you had to travel to them. But when I wasn't, I became very anxious when I wasn't winning, or if I felt that I hadn't trained enough, and it bothered me a lot. And then I had to think about who I was doing it for. Was I doing it for myself? Was I doing it so other people would accept me? I was probably the only woman most of the time. I definitely was the only Black person there. And I wasn't connected as a female to any man that was on the mat. And I always had this feeling that when I did see other women or heard about them, with the exception of a very few, that it was, they had a man next to them and supporting them. And so I felt like I was a solo soldier out there. And people did ask me why. I mean, I got some very strange things like, oh, you just want to be on those sweaty men's, So that's how people looked at it. So I had a back and forth with, wait a minute, people are going to think I'm some kind of way, like I'm trying to get somebody, but all I want to do is what my body feels like doing. And I describe it that way for my students. My physical body loves doing jiu-jitsu. Right now, I feel I'm stiff. I feel stiff because I'm not rolling. But when I roll, it doesn't matter. I have a full hip replacement on the right side, and I roll better now, and than I did then, because I've let go of the anxiety of winning, and the anxiety of the tap, as she was saying, and the shame of people saying you're not that good. So, or you don't know this, or you don't know that. And I took a lot of those things personally early on. I think a product of being the only woman, feeling self-conscious about that in a lot of places, and then being the only Black person. And so I go back and forth, from year to year about that whole, about how I feel about the journey. I think there are wonderful things about it. The thing I like most is that I learned a lot about myself. I learned about things that I would accept in my life, not just lip service would say, that I really would accept when it came down to it, and what I wouldn't accept. And I was shoring those things up all the way to get to be the woman that I am now, at moving towards 60. But it was a journey, and I had kids going through and stuff. So we'll hit some other stuff.
The only thing I would add, I agree 100% with Felicia's experience of training now and having fun with it, and with Bernadette's experience of really feeling sometimes like you needed to justify your presence, which was extremely frustrating because, like you, all I wanted to do was train. The only thing that I would add is that nowadays, jiu-jitsu isn't the only leg of my table, if that makes sense. So for a long time, jiu-jitsu was the only leg of my table. And if something happened to that, then I had no table. And now I've re-experienced the joy, and for me, the health benefits of being diversified in my interests, in my contacts with different kinds of people, and in the ways that the things that I've learned through jiu-jitsu can help me in other aspects of my life. So I used to be single-minded. I was training all the time. I was thinking about training. I was dreaming about training. I don't do that quite as much. I still love jiu-jitsu, but like I said, you know, the ardor has cooled a little bit. The commitment is still there, but my life is more diversified. And I think that that is to my benefit and to the benefit of my jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
I like the way,
go ahead.
I was saying, I like the way you put that.
Absolutely.
Val.
No, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, you know, I haven't been training nearly as long as you guys, but, you know, thinking about, you know, how we do kind of, you know, the honeymoon phase where we're in love and we just want to be a part of it. We want to make it our whole world. And then something like this happens, the pandemic, and we're like, I feel empty. I feel so sad inside because that whole jiu-jitsu filled that hole completely. And I didn't diversify, you know, and I hope that, and I know for myself, I've been feeling like this for a long time, but I hope that of this, people start realizing that, you know what, jiu-jitsu should be, it can be a huge part of your life, but maybe it shouldn't be the whole part of your life, you know, like you guys said. But going back, I wanted to see, do you guys have, is there anything that you like do for, like, I know all of you have had injuries in jiu-jitsu, and coming back from an injury is sometimes difficult. As you've progressed in the sport, do you has your self-care and your preventative measures for avoiding injuries, has that changed at all, and how you approach training?
Mine definitely has. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. I think that sometimes it's for the challenge reasons, when people see a black belt and they want to challenge you all of a sudden. And, you know, and then some of it is just my physical body. I'm more vocal about choosing and saying, yeah, no, we're not going to do this today. And I don't care if it's in the beginning, middle, or end of a match, right? Part of the arts and part of the closeness of this is being able to feel the energy for me of the other person. And so perhaps I'm hypersensitive to it, but I know when we're going down the wrong avenue, and I'm quick to stop it. I need to come home. I need to work. I need to live. And jiu-jitsu isn't everything for me. You know, it's a big part of my life, but I'm not giving up limbs for it. You know, and I'm quick to tap if I need to tap, and I challenge myself too. So there's a part of me that challenges myself, but it's on my terms. I don't allow it to be on anybody's terms, not even a person that is a black belt above me in the room. You know, that's just where I am right now in my life.
One of the things that I have realized is that, and this, you know, this could be like a duh, everybody knows this, but you know, the jiu-jitsu community can be, there can be peer pressure there, right? And so one of the things that has definitely changed for me is that I used to succumb to that peer pressure. You know, why aren't you training? Are you training tonight? Are you training tomorrow? Are you going to be there? Are you going to stay? You're resting this round? Why, you know, come train with me. And I used to succumb to that a lot more, because I didn't think it was harmful, and I still don't think that people mean it in a harmful way. But what has become galvanized for me is even the best meaning people don't know what's best for me. I do. And it's my job to take that responsibility for myself, even if it means that, you know, to your point, Bernadette, the hungry female blue belt who has never seen a female black belt before wanted to train with me and she doesn't get to this time because I'm done. That has to be okay, because if I don't take that kind of care of myself, and if I don't listen to myself over the peer pressure, then I could make some decisions that really could hurt me. And I don't want that. And then maybe I won't be available to train the next time she comes.
Yeah, I think the self-preservation has gotten stronger. And I think as a black belt and an older black belt, I have earned that right to make those decisions. and it's a certain part of my personality when I'm on the mat too, right? So, I mean, there are people that have rolled with me and did some things that weren't so agreeable. And so the next time they said, hey, do you want to roll? I'm like, nope. And I walk away. And again, that's part of my personality as well. And, you know, and if sometimes they've said, hey, did I do something wrong? I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I didn't like the way you did this and this. And so, you know, like I need to take care of myself. I'm not saying you need to change, but I need to take care of myself, and I can't roll with you because of that. That being said, when I came back to jiu-jitsu, I've had 2 of my worst injuries that people didn't necessarily like. They weren't necessarily malicious, but it wasn't something I could control, you know, because just the nature of the sport.
And I know we've touched on competition, and, you know, I mean, there's been a huge shift. Like you touched on the Master Worlds. I remember when I first started competing, it was like, oh, the Master Worlds, who does that? You know, it wasn't as prestige as it is now, you know. And probably because everybody aged into the Masters divisions and we still wanted to keep competing. But you know, there's been a lot of factors that have led up to it. Amongst it, you know, is that you women were out there doing a lot of the heavy lifting for a long time, having a presence in the sport, you know, and you know, a lot of efforts on a lot of parts from a lot of different people. But what do you think, you know, post-pandemic, back to normal, what do you think are some things that we can encourage more master women to compete? And do you think it's important for them to compete in their journey?
I definitely think that competition helps to speed your improvement. It's kind of like a test where you go and see what works and what doesn't. But I think beyond that, especially for Masters Women, and I need to give it to Karen Peters for kind of starting that whole Masters Women's group and pressuring the IBJJF to start having those divisions. But ever since I started competing in jiu-jitsu, you know, there's different little micro worlds and sub communities in jiu-jitsu, and one of them is your academy and everyone you train with. And when I came up, there was only 3 people that competed. No one else at the academy competed. So then I had this whole other group of people that I met through competition, because living in LA, you would do competitions as often as you could, and you would start seeing the same people and you start becoming friends with all those people. And sometimes you ended up training with them, but some people I go way back with just because we became friends at a tournament. And so, and competition's a whole different set of skills. I think everyone should try it at least once. And in fact, now, because there are those women's masters divisions, that it becomes a safer environment for you to go try that, you know, just to have that experience. And maybe you'll hate it, but I can guarantee you'll connect with so many more women and you won't feel isolated and alone, and they'll become your friends, you know.
Mm-hmm. I agree that I think everyone would benefit from trying competing. Competing isn't for everybody, especially nowadays, because there are professional white belt competitors. I mean, there are people who have been training for 6 months and they like have sponsorship and they compete every weekend, and it's hard to compete, no pun intended, but it's hard to contend with that if you are someone who for whom competition isn't in the cards in a major way. But in my opinion, that shouldn't preclude you from at least giving it a try, both for the reasons that that Felicia mentioned in terms of expanding your community, and also because the skill set is different, and also because this is the same thing I say to people who say, oh, well, I don't like wrestling or I don't like leg locks. This is an aspect of a sport, of an art that we all purport to love. And if you love it, you kind of, you know, I kind of love it warts and all. And so maybe I don't like competing as much as the next person, but it's a part of something that I do love, and it will give me a perspective on that thing that I wouldn't otherwise have.
And I kind of think to each his own. I, you know, for my students, and I would say for anyone, that I think that it is, or at least I think it is important to compete. How often you compete is up to you. I hope people try it. I think it's a, I think it's a beautiful thing. I also think it's a financial commitment that people have to be prepared for, because there's not masters everywhere, so you're flying places, you're leaving family, you're spending money. And for me, I stopped competing because I was putting kids through college. This is not going to happen anymore because we can't do both of these things, and myself through college again. So it was like 3 of us in college. No, we're not going to be able to do the competition. And my first obligation is to my family and the health of my family. And so I said, competition aside, I had become a little discouraged. I do want to compete sometimes, but I've become discouraged. And it could be, admittedly, it could be the way that I think about it. And one of the things that I don't like is that everybody is a world champion. And when I started, there were only a few world champions, but now everybody is a world champion. And I can't reconcile that in my mind. I'm like, I don't need to do that. I have medals. Why do I, and I tell my students too, it's good. Yes, you win. Great. Celebrate it. We're happy for you. And then let it go and move to the next thing, because as soon as you turn your back, there's another world champion. so it's lost some of its oomph for me over the years. It's not as special. And again, financially, it was becoming a burden. So I was like, I can do without it. I feel okay without it.
Yeah. And to what Bernadette was saying, I think that issue of all the world champions, I think by doing it, then it deflates it, right? Like then that kind of like put it in perspective. Okay, you did a local tournament. You're not really a world champion, like. So I think if someone wants to go into there, it's a way of humbling and putting into perspective things as well. So.
Absolutely. I wanted to open it up to you guys. What are you, in your opinions, what are some of the biggest issues out there for master women? And it's a broad one.
I think, and it's hard because everybody, I think in jiu-jitsu, I think we kind of touched on it about that urgency. And I think for masters women especially, and knowing that part of me getting EBV and part of what we were talking about earlier, like because you have different things and the stress as a older woman, I think takes its toll much quicker and pushes us to certain edges, and which is why I had to kind of almost leave the sport. So I think we really have to pay attention more to our bodies and our lives. And back to what you were saying, I have seen women, and it isn't necessarily with jiu-jitsu, but it's with, at the time I was, kind of doing fitness and CrossFit and teaching those things, but it happened to several other women at the same kind of situation where you're a mother, you're working a job, and now you're starting this physical activity and very intense physical activity. And that in some of those cases, it's jiu-jitsu, sometimes it's CrossFit, different things. It's that same sort of intense physical activity that because of that intensity, you get this very positive endorphin feedback, and you start feeling the power of your body and your muscles, your ability as a physical being that you may not have felt before in your life. Right. And that feeds it, but yet you still have all these other obligations. And when you start taxing your body and your mind and your emotion on so many angles coming in, something is going to go. And I think that's why I got sick, and I think just really paying attention to that and trying to, as we were saying, like make jiu-jitsu a part of your life, but don't, you can't, you have to sacrifice something at some point. And, Bernadette has a very good grasp of that. She's like, my family comes first and our health and well-being come first. And I think jiu-jitsu can be very seductive in that way and lure us in. And I think one has to try and be mature and manage that. I don't know. It's wonderful to hear Bernadette talk about that, because I don't have kids in a family that I have to worry about and protect. So I didn't have to necessarily make those kinds of choices, but I did pay for it in a certain sense with my health. So I think just really paying attention to that more overall holistic kind of approach to your life and managing it in some way. I know it's hard with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to say my comment is just going to be a little bit nitpicky, because it's been like over the last probably year and a half, 2 years. And I just want to say, listen to me. I don't like the idea of, especially in a room full of, black belts, like the men can have conversations about technique or whatever. And if I try to talk up, it's like I'm not even in the room. And it's like, okay, wait a minute now I got to get Bernadette. The other Bernadette needs to come and say, I was getting ready to say something. Now I'm going to finish it. And I don't I don't want to get like that. I feel like I'm allowed, like I have to step in sometimes to say, like, I'm not just on the side. I know jiu-jitsu. I know judo. I know, I'm not just saying go out there and roll around and do this and a move, do this move or do that move and rah, rah, rah. Let's explain what it's about. But I find that there are certain people that don't want to hear, like when you want to talk technical, if I want to, if I'm saying something, I would want to figure it out. It's like, cut them off. Okay, just grab the guy by the arm and just take the arm off. It's like, yeah, that's not quite what jiu-jitsu is, So sometimes I just get frustrated with the males. It's mostly males in the room that it's like, I'm not there. I'm standing there and I have a voice. And, and I've become a little bit pushy in my older age. Like, hey, I'm going to say it anyway, whether you like it or not, and just speak my mind, So that's been a little bit frustrating sometimes.
I think what I wanted to say, Bernadette, will at least echo that in some way. What I was going to say is, and I think it's beautiful that you take up your space, which is what I was basically going to say. I think, I'll be 50 this year. I have a black belt. In a lot of ways, I don't give a crap anymore. So I'm going to take up that space. And I have experience, and I have the belt, and I have that behind me. What I would say for women who are up and coming, particularly women who are a little bit older, take up your space. And that doesn't mean don't be open to learning, be humble, be respectful, but also command respect. Also remember that you have a place on the mat if you want it. And you have as much right to be there as anybody. And if someone, I've heard this actually with many senior women that I've chatted with, they don't know how to teach me. Well, then they need to figure it out, because you have a right to be there if you want to be there. Absolutely. And if anybody gives you a hard time, get in touch with me, and you just have to hold my purse, but I'll take care of business for you.
That's awesome.
I have a slightly different experience, but I also had a different experience coming up in jiu-jitsu. When I almost feel like I went through a time in life where my main job was as an instructor for jiu-jitsu. And that's how I made my living. And a few years ago when I came back, I realized I enjoyed training. I like teaching, but I love rolling. And so I don't teach anymore. I do privates and seminars and stuff, but I don't teach anymore. And there are other instructors at the academy, and it's not my academy. So I don't make that about me. And then sometimes people say, how come you don't, teach this or do that? I'm like, because I haven't been asked to, and it's not my position. It's not my academy, and I'm here to roll. I'm not here to be a teacher. And there are some people, and I've had some similar experiences where other lower ranking people come and correct me about things. And I have my looks and attitudes about that. But I also, at other times, I think some people the people I help are the people that are friends of mine and that respect me and my jujitsu. And if I'm friends with them, I'll help them. If they ask me a question, I'll help them. A lot of those people that don't necessarily know or respect me, they probably won't ask me and I won't help them, which is fine, you know, because I only want to help the people I want to help that I feel are interested and value what I have to give them. And if they keep doing moves, maybe not so technically, and if there are people that I don't know that would be open to my input, I just let them keep doing it their way. And maybe someday they'll find out that that isn't the best way. But again, I came from, my academy is a little bit different, you know, like we have different experiences with our academies.
And I should point out too, for every person who didn't want me there were 20 people who did.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, Felicia, to focus on the positives and the fact that there are a lot of people who do want us there. They want our wisdom, they want our experience, they want our, you know, in my case, I like to think sense of humor. And so I think on my more noble days, I try to do what you do. And on my less noble days, I'm a little bit snippy.
That's okay.
It's okay. I must say, like, I'm always impressed when a white belt comes over, like usually a guy, like, hey, can I ask you a question? Because like when I'm there to train, I'm not there to teach. And I know there's some people that are there that part of their experience is helping other people, which it's good that, you know, you have other people helping newer belts. But I've been through every aspect of it. So if you want me to teach, you might want to hire me. So I'm there to train. And so when people ask me again, like, I'm always impressed if a white belt comes up to me and asks me, because I'm not always that approachable. Because I'm just there to get my roll in, you know, I'm there to train. I'm not there to teach. I want to train. I want to get my sweat. I want to get, you know, I want to get my stuff done. And so I do find more respect for young men that come up to me and ask me questions, because it shows that they don't have that blockage in their brain. So it gives me hope.
It gives you hope. Oh, well, it was such a pleasure having you guys. I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your busy days to join us and to share your insight and your wisdom. I've learned a lot during this session. I'm sure that everybody else at home has as well. And, you know, and wholeheartedly, thank you so much for leading the way. You know, if it wasn't for the efforts on your parts, you know, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have everybody listening. So thank you for being strong examples of how women can be and the presence that we can have and the place at the table that we can have in jiu-jitsu. So thank you for inspiring.
Thanks, Shauna.
Yeah, thanks for bringing us together.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to having you guys on again. Thank you everybody at home for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this session and stay tuned for more. If you guys are not aware, check it out on Sunday. Girls In Gis and Sweaty Betties have joined forces to present the United She Stands project, which we will have Leticia Ribeiro teaching a class. You can go to girlsandgeese.com and sign up. It's our way of giving back and supporting women, business owners, and instructors in the community, helping them through this hard time. So please come out and support. All the proceeds go to helping Leticia with her many expenses during this time and being shut down due to the pandemic. So thank you again all, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was nice seeing you.